We back on the 1MC. It's your boy Keith. And today we got a very special guest, man. Master Chief Amaury Ponciano. Anchored in resilience is his motto. You know what I'm saying? So the book is on the streets. If you want to show the audience the hard copy there
you go
cop that in stores now. Let the people know where they can find the book at if they need to get it elsewise.
Yeah, it's very easy. Whether it is you type Anchor in Resilience or my name in Amazon, it will come up. Appreciate all the support so far. It's been very humbling, the amount of support that I have received, and I hope that everybody can grab a copy, and if not for yourself, then for someone else, because we all can use a little bit of inspiration.
Oh, for sure. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Master Chief. I know you're a superstar in New York, 100 top 100 bestseller list and all that, but a few folks may not know who you is, man. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, brother. I'm Amaury Ponciano, ITCM. I've been in the Navy it's about to be 25 years here in August. Joined right out of high school, as you could probably tell by my accent. I'm the Latino descent. Was born in Dominican Republic, and I came to New Jersey when I was 14 and joined the Navy right out of high school.
Okay, that's a bet. I did too. I was 17 in boot camp, man.
Oh man,
hard times. It was my birthday in boot camp, and the RDC was like, "Man, we want to throw a party for you, man." I was like, "Oh shit, we had parties at boot camp? Cool." He was like, "Abandon ship." Abandon ship. Oh, push those right back. Push up position. Happy birthday. Happy birthday 2. I was like, God damn.
They were ruthless back in those days, bro.
Savages, bro. Savages. Hey, but Anchored in Resilience, man. Hey, that was a really good read, man. I was gripped. I say I'm gonna read probably because on my little Kindle app it show up the percentage of how much I read at the bottom. I said, I'm gonna read 10% a day. Get to the 10% mark. Man, that shit was at 52%. I ain't put that thing down. I said, I gotta see what port busy he hit next. I gotta see this, right? That thing was a page turner, man. No cap. I know a lot of people be like, oh man, that's great. I'm gonna support. No, I was knee deep in that book, man. I finished it in probably about an hour and a half of real time combined. How many times I picked it up and it started, man. So I love the book. As I told you, man, I feel like I wrote some of that book, man, because man, some of them situations you was in, I was like, oh man, this sounds really familiar. I can really feel like I can see myself, how you read something and you picture it in your head. That's how I kind of as I was reading your book, man.
And that's something that I've been getting a lot of as far as the feedback, right? Which I truly appreciate, because it just, if anything, it just really shows that we all have a lot more in common than we believe, right? Yeah. So it's not even about, I wrote a book about, and my life is so special. No, it's to let you know that, we have a lot in common, and we have a lot of struggles as well. And it's what you do with that, right? What are you going to decide to do? Are you going to let these struggles hold you back, or are you going to try to continue to excel? I will say this: no matter what I wrote in that book, and whatever level of success that someone want to stamp on me for whatever reason, it could not be done without just amazing people around me, and even some luck, right? I've been in situations where I'd gotten something that it was just simply because I was doing what every other sailor was doing, but I was just in the right place with the right leaders and things like that. So, I don't lose sight of that, right? Because I try to lead the same way that people have, been leading me to get to this place, because that's the whole thing, is to ensure that we have our replacement, right? And that we, and then we try to keep it, make things a little bit better than the way, we found them, kind of thing. So
absolutely, I'm a firm believer trainer replacements, man. I try my best to do that as well, man. A lot of leaders before me taught me that, man. But let's hop into this book, man. let's get into this thing, man. So you're born in the Dominican Republic, man. Let's talk about your childhood as you went over your childhood quite extensively in the book, man. What can you tell us about your upbringing in the DR, man?
Yeah. So the first thing that especially when I look back, is yes, I was definitely poor. I come, it's a third world country. Very beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Beautiful people in the sense of like we're always happy. We always find a way to have a good time. But I was, we're very poor. And then I come from a broken home. My parents got divorced at a very young age. And then once they got divorced, I bounced around a lot. If it wasn't from living with my mother to then living with my dad to then living with one of my aunts from my mom's side, then to another one, and then finally being living with my mother. And all of that, what that does is it's the lack of stability. And the best way I could describe it to us in the military world, think about how we transfer from command to command, right? Like it's for us it's good because after a certain amount of time, you kind of get tired of the same environment. So you got to go. But for a child, there's a lack of a stability. It's detrimental, right? And as you'll see in the book, not only were issues as far as not living with with certain people, with with my mom or with my dad, but there were also the issues of when I was living with certain people, how they treated me, or lack of certain things that then made me the person that I am, for better or worse, right? So that's why one of the reasons that I in the book I talk about like a young man trying to find love, because I didn't feel love when I was a child. It of course, as that was happening, I didn't understand what it was happening, but as I gotten older and I look back, and then with the therapy through the years, is the lack of love. And some of it was not necessarily because they didn't want to love me. It was just, let's say living with my aunt, she had kids of her own. So they are going to come first, like just the reality of it, right? Like, there's nothing against my aunt. It just simply, her children will come first and then me, right? And then that happened in as simple as who's going to get what piece of chicken for dinner, right?
yeah, I saw that in the book. I was like, damn, you ain't never get the big piece of chicken, bro. Damn,
no, bro.
never.
No. So and as I look back, I don't look back with any anger towards them or any resentment. I mean, they took me in, right? Like that I'm grateful for. I mean, there's other things too on the positive side. Like, as crazy as it's about to sound, I love doing dishes. Why? Because I grew up next to my aunts, and I would be doing the dishes while they're cooking and doing other stuff. And we will have conversations that, sometimes for a 10-year-old would not be necessarily a good conversation to have. But I learned early about a lot of things in life because they will share things with me. And that was how I felt some sort of closeness to them and to an adult, for that matter. So, I didn't have enough time with my mother until I finally came to the U.S. when I was 14. And a lot of that had to do with, my dad not allowing me to go to the United States or to come to the U.S. when my mom did, because when you come from a divorce, parents, you both of them have to agree. So like my mom would do the paperwork, but my dad had to sign a permission saying, hey, it's okay for him to come to the U.S. And my dad refused to do that back in 87 when my mom left the Dominican Republic to come to the U.S. So
you found out about that like later on, huh?
Yeah, and that was something that traumatized me for a long time, right? So really quick, as part of the book, you'll see there that like I was lied to as a 7. At the time that my mom left, I was like close to 10, so I was like 8 or 9, and she left to the U.S. and I was told by my dad that she left me, right? And when you tell an 8, 9-year-old boy or girl, for just a child, that their mother left them, that scarred a kid. Like,
Absolutely.
There's no other way to put it, right? And all that did was bring a lot of anger. You know, some of it that I didn't even know, it was just building, and it will show in other things in my life. But I was just angry because, you know, why would my mother leave me? But in reality, later on, I found out that it was simply my dad that did not sign the papers. But instead of saying that, and to be honest with you, he had a good reason at that time. His reasoning was my mother was going to come to New York. And like anything else in life, unless you experience a certain place, all you know is what the news tell you. And what was coming out in the news from New York was people selling drugs, people, you know, getting killed, like, you know, the bad things that were happening in the 80s in New York, right? So he was like, I don't want my child to go to that. If he would have said that, yeah, it would have hurt, but at least it wouldn't have been putting the blame on my mother, right? Because it's a huge difference between your mother don't want you to come with you to I don't want you to go just simply because I don't want you to be raised in that environment. The two very different things. That was not what it was said to me. You know, for the next 4.5 years, and until I came to the state, I was really resentful of my mother, which only made me a very angry and bitter child that I got into trouble a lot. It was crazy because I had really good grades. I was student of the year for like 3 years in a row. And
back to back to back. I saw that, the three-peat, yes, sir.
Yeah, in my school in DR, right? And some of that was because I live with my aunt, and I guess I wanted to prove to people, or I wanted to feel love. You know, you'll hear that a lot in my book. I wanted to feel love, so like my way to maybe it was like, let me be the best I could be in school, and maybe they will celebrate me like they celebrate my cousin. You know, my mom want to, you know, take me, you know, back, whatever, because I'm good at school. So I guess it worked out. But then at the same token, I will leave class or school, and in the afternoon, I will get into like 2 or 3 fights with kids in the neighborhood because I was so angry. So it was so it's a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing. Like I would just be such a great student in school, and then be a troublemaker when I get to the house because I wanted to fight everybody, to the point that some of my cousins will literally will argue with other kids.
Come get you.
And then get me to fight.
Yeah. You like the Dominican Antoine Fisher, bro.
Right. It was a lot of anger, man. And of course, again, I'll say this, at that time, you don't understand, you know, I'm 14, 15. I don't know why I'm so angry. And even in my 20s, I didn't know. It took to go to therapy. And, you know how once you get into therapy, it's never about what's going on at this moment. They're like, let's go back to your childhood. Like, let's see.
Start at the beginning. Yeah.
Start at the beginning. So when that's those conversations, and you know, I've been to, because of being stationed in so many different places, I bounced around to different therapists, and they all say the same thing. It's my childhood. And that goes for everybody, to just let you know how you're raised, the people that you're around, the things that you see, the things that you have to overcome at an early age, that all molds who we are today, which is why is good to have diversity in the military as a whole, as an institution. Because although me and you have a lot in common, we're still two completely different people. And we're going to see things with different perspectives. And that's the beauty of you know, the diversity that we have in our Navy.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bounce around the book a little bit. There was a part in there when you talked about when you got to boot camp, and it was the first time you were probably in not a majority Latino, you know, background or setting. Man, how was that culture shock, and how did you go through that time?
So I was just talking to my division yesterday, my department yesterday, about that part of my life, because I'm not ashamed to say it, because it's just a reality. So I was telling them that boot camp was the first time that I was around African Americans, right? Like, it's wild.
That's great. In New York, in the Bronx, you had no black people around?
So I was around in the sense of like I saw it when I went to New York and Manhattan, but Union City in New Jersey is predominantly Latinos, right?
Right.
But that's the first time that I was interacting. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Like there was a conversation besides just simply going inside a bodega and saying excuse me, or or you know what I mean. And quickly I learned that we all the same.
And pretty much, pretty much,
brother. Like the things that we were saying about, like, let's say our mothers, or how curfew was, or your grandmother having that couch that you cannot sit on it because it's all covered up and shit, and like things that when you in your one world, you think, oh, Latinos are the only ones that do this. No. I learned so much. And to be honest with you, as someone that was not around, and to be honest with you too, like I wasn't around white people either, right? Like, so it wasn't just excluded to like African Americans. It was also to Caucasian white folks, because again, Union City was so Latino driven that it was actual Americans were the minority. And were the city that I was in. So, I like I was telling my sailors yesterday, it's when, and this is going to sound disgusting, but it is what it is when I learned, from a brother that was like, hey man, you're not using a rag to wash yourself? And
my God, that's crazy. Yeah, that's funny you bring that up, man, because I was a big loofah guy, right? Huge loofah, right? And nobody said it to me, but I heard it in passing. I had somebody tell me when I was like first command, somewhere around there. And, we walked to the shower with our shit in our hand, right? You got all your little shit. And I was like, damn, bro, you got a rag? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of inconvenient. That bitch still wet. It's dripping on the floor and shit when you come back. He was like, yeah, man, you ain't clean. You be using a loofah. I was like, oh, shit, I ain't clean? He was like, yeah, man, you got to wipe your body. I was like, you know what? I ain't never think of it that way, but you're right. So I got a whole routine now. I got 2 rags, one for my face, because if you're using the same rag to wipe your ass that you use to wipe your face, you a nasty motherfucker, right? So I got a rag for my face, I got a rag for my body, and I got a loofah. I come behind the rag with the loofah just to scrub down a little bit extra, you know what I'm saying? So now I got a whole routine ever since he told me that, you know what I'm saying?
He put it so, he was like so nonchalant about it. He was just like, how you gonna get in your crevices, bro?
that's crazy.
Like,
no, you're right though. It's facts. It's a big fact.
With that same face, like, how you gonna? Like, he was so disgusted. Like, how you gonna get in your crevices, bro? And he just kept walking after that, and I was like, all right, bad.
Yeah, I ain't never eaten after this motherfucker. Don't offer me no snacks. If your bag of chips is open, I don't want none. Nothing. Like, get out of here.
But ever since after that, like I but that's just some of the things that, like, you had to, if that experience of boot camp like emerges you to understand that, like, now we're one, we're all in the same team, we're all gonna be, and then if you're lucky enough to be open-minded, you learn from people, and then like you start seeing the fact of like I said again, like just talking, because after you get beat up in boot camp and you do all the push-ups and all that sort of stuff, and the little bit of time that you have to clean your shoes or doing something, you have conversation with people, and like again, the biggest thing I picked up from that was we're all the same, bro. Like it just. Absolutely. There might be little tweaks and things that might be a little bit different here and there, but moms are gonna be moms, grandmoms are gonna be grandmas. You're gonna have that weirdo in your family that's either doing a crime or is worse or something else, or you're gonna have that drunk. We all have all those things, right? Like, we're all human, and the complexion, your sexuality, your religion, none of that matters, right? Like, yeah, it might sway you to be more for one area than other, but at the core, we all want to be better ourselves, have a better life, have, take care of our families. And when you start with that, and the fact that like nobody joins the Navy to fail. Everybody joins to be something, to be better, to take advantage of something that the Navy has to offer, right? So when you're looking from that perspective, it opens your eyes and heart and mind and soul to just simply be, let's be a team, let's have a common goal, and try to make the best out of the situation.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand this, man, but especially on an aircraft carrier, if you walk through the mess decks at 2100, everybody clicked up, right? You got your Latino group, right? You got your LGBT group, right? You got your Asian group. You got your Filipinos because they act like they not Asian sometimes. Everybody's separate. You got the black people, right? You got your golf mother. You got your Dungeons and Dragon people, right? But at the end of the day, when it's time to go back to work, all those people go back to their work centers, and those work centers are just a big melting pot. And everybody in the shop, for the most part, right? You got a couple of folks that hate each other, but for the most part, everybody is family, right? Everybody going you got to be willing to die for the person next to you in that shop, especially, as we, come up on a conversation about, one of the, experiences that you went through. So let's talk about when you moved to the U.S., man. So dad didn't want to sign the papers, but he finally did, right? You went through that process of getting to the U.S. Talk about that process of getting to the U.S. and how that transition was when you got to the States.
So I finally, unfortunately it took them. My granddad was who's dying. He was in bed. And although my parents were divorced for, at that time already, probably for like 10 years, my granddad and my dad still had a very good relationship. And so he was visiting, and my granddad was like, when you going to let this boy be with his mother and have a better life? Because no matter what you want to say about the U.S., it's just a better life. Like, being poor in the U.S. is not being poor in DR. So even at the lowest, just simply because there's so many services here in the U.S. that like
Absolutely,
we don't have Dominican Republic,
it's not
right?
the same. Yeah, it's not the same, bro.
So my dad finally was like, because also like my uncles and aunts, they kind of corner him. Yeah, it was like, it's time, man. Like, he's 11, because at the time I was 11. This was in '91. He's 11. He knows what's good and bad. Like he could, he's not a child anymore. Still a child, but not not a 5-year-old or 7-year-old. They're going to be impressionable. So anyway, so he finally signs the paper. It takes a process. It took about 3 years. So in '94, October 24 of 1994, I landed in JFK, and it's already snowing.
Coming from the DR, that's the first thing you see when you get off the plane. Snow. That's crazy.
Was freezing. My mom was waiting with a sweater and a jacket for me outside.
Yeah, she knew what's up. Yeah.
And I mean, the excitement, right? Seeing my mother, knowing that I'm going to be living with her, like, I don't care that it was cold. But then there comes the challenges of, I didn't speak the language, right? So luckily, again, my community where I live in Union City was predominantly Latino. So ESL, or English as a second language, was big in the high school. So they transitioned you really well, where I was taking my first year at the 8th grade, because I got here in the 8th grade, and then freshman and sophomore were like all Spanish classes. And then you transition as your English get better to all English or half and half or whatever. Funny enough, there's two driving forces for me to learn English as quickly as I could. One, my brother from my mother's side, he already spoke English because he's been here longer. So he used to make fun of me in English, and I hated that with a passion. So that will make me pick up. And then, if I'm being real with you, the ladies, right? So because although they were Latina, that they were in the same community. A lot of the girls from my high school only spoke English, although their parents were from Puerto Rico or from Salvador or whatever. The kid is because I saw it in my own house. Like my brother, he didn't speak Spanish that well. He can understand Spanish, so whenever my mom was telling him what to do or not to do, he understood, but he didn't speak it as well. So when he was in school, he only spoke English. Right. So I saw that with a lot of girls. And I remember like it was yesterday, a lot of times when some girls will come and talk to me and all I will be like, thank you. Because I didn't know what they were saying. They could have. I remember one of them was calling me stupid because I kept laughing. All I kept saying was thank you because I didn't know what it was being said. So yeah, that was my drive. And then I went into, we had in my high school, we had what I was called we had a specific class where it will take you to like some colleges, just so you could see what it will be like, so you could apply. And I actually even stay overnight in 3 of them, Boston College, Pitt, and then there's another one in New Jersey. I can't remember right now. And I don't know.
They give you some nice colleges. That's D1.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I had good grades. There's nothing to do with sports. Right. It was just my academic grades. And but I remember that each time I stayed with like someone in a dorm where the other kid or my sponsor was like like partying all the time, like an animal, like just always having fun. So every time I will come back, I will tell my mother, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to be by myself in college. Like I knew about myself that I was disciplined because I was at home, and my mother she was very disciplined in the sense of like, you will do this, you will have good grades, you will do all this. So she was married at the time, and her husband was like, well, if you want discipline, then join the military, because he was in the army for like 7 years or something like that. So I took my ass back for the army. But then when I was in the recruiting station, the guy is like, I infantry. He just kept saying infantry. I'm like, I want to work with computers, bro. And he just kept saying infantry, and I got pissed. So I don't know if your recruiting station was the same, but mine, the moment you walk out of one office, all the other offices are like just in the P-way. Like you don't even have to leave the building. So I stepped out, and then very next office was the Navy one. And I walked in, and I, told the recruiter, I was like, hey, man, what you got to offer? And he's like, well, I need to your ASVAB and whatever. And I was like, if you could give me a job with computers, I'm yours. I already took the ASVAB. You just got to get the paperwork from this dude in the Army. So he went over there, got the stuff. I could hear the Army recruiter cursing me out from across the hall.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And but what really intrigued me, or what I like really clicked for me, RM2 Colon, that was his last name. He was Puerto Rican. I didn't know he was an RM, by the way, because he didn't even want to tell me his, rate or whatever.
Yeah.
In the back, kind of like right now, how I have pictures of my kids, he has all these pictures, and in every picture there was either 2 things. It was either, a monument for somewhere in some country, the Eiffel Tower, for example, because he's been in Paris or whatever, or a beautiful woman next to him, and he hugged up. Yeah. And I was like, whatever you're doing, that's what I want to do.
I need some of that. Whatever that is, that's what I want to do. That's it. Yes, sir.
That's it. And I went to MEPS in Brooklyn, and they're giving me all these jobs, right? And the one good thing my recruiter said, he's like, you have really good asbestos course, so do not take anything that starts with apprenticeship. No seaman apprenticeship, no fireman apprenticeship. You get a job. And then so he was talking, and I was like, he was giving me DK, as if you remember those.
Yes.
was thrown in there, like all these different things. And I kept saying, I want to work with computers, not typing. I want to be able to work in the network. And he finally say RM. Because my English was not as good at the time, he had to try to get a waiver, but my math was so high that I was able to get the waiver. And that's, how I got picked up to be in an RM. And I was in the delay entry program for like about a year because I signed up early. And then I did my senior year, man. And then it was time to go.
Oh, that's dope, man. I told my story on the first one we did as an introductory episode. Recruiter just walked up on me, man. But one thing I didn't say in that story is I was almost an OS. I almost committed career suicide and went OS. And that's because I came in with my buddy, right? I called him my cousin, but that's what we all did back in the day, right? Your best buddy was your cousin. So we came in on the buddy system. And we both signed up for OS because he liked the OS. I was like, cool, we can be OSs then. Yeah. And like it had to be like the day before we left. They were like, hey, you want to switch to IT? I was like, what they do? It's like, oh, work on computers. I was like, okay, sure. I'm talking about the day before I shipped out. So it just so happened the day before I shipped out, I swapped to IT. Thank God I did because OS is 6 on, 6 off. I was like, ooh. Yikes. So thank God for that, bro. But you kind of hit on this already, man. But a lot of the content in the book is about you being a ladies' man. So, man, you the Liberty buddy I always wished I had on deployment, bro. You always be in the right spot at the right time, man. Let's talk about after you got to the States, your English got to look good, but you can still speak that Spanish flow. So you got the best of both worlds at this point, right? You got the fair skin, you know what I'm saying? You got the accent, you got the curls, you got the little George Clooney gray going on, man. You popping, right? So talk about your experience coming up through high school as a predominant ladies man, as you described yourself.
I think you were going to the story of Stephanie and the mom.
Hey, I ain't trying to give out no spoiler alerts, you know what I'm saying? But hey, we talked in private. You already know what I'm thinking, but I'll let you tell it, man. You know what I'm saying?
So it's funny. So a couple of things in regards to that, right? Like, there's part of there that I talk about how one of the Valentine's Day was approaching. And again, like at this time in Dominican Republic, I was young, right? I left, like I said, in the 8th grade, right? So like 13, 14, right? So, but nobody paid me any mind, right? Like, I love my country, but what I will say is that even to this day, there is this thing about like, if you're, like you consider higher or better looking if you are lighter skin or if you are white or, you know what I mean? Like that, it's synonymous with like money and old status. So in other words, I was not handsome in my country. Like I was like, so for example, I live with my cousin, Carlos. Carlos is like very light skinned with hazel eyes, taller than me. So he was getting all the girls, like, my neighborhood. And I, nothing. So, but I was so young that it didn't matter to me. And then I come to the US and it's a complete different world, right? Like all these girls from all these different countries from Latin America, are talking to me or whatever. So the Valentine story is like, the teacher was like, hey, the Valentine dance is coming up. Who has a date? And everybody raised their hand or whatever. And then they're like, who doesn't? And I raised my hand and I was like, I don't have anybody. I'm not, so I'm planning on going. And then she asked the question in front of everybody, like, who will go with Amaury? And like 8 girls just raised their hand. Even some that already had a date or whatever. And then like, that was like the first time that I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I got a little something going on. I don't know what it is, but I'll take it. So then later on, I meet. So Stephanie was the very first non-Latina that I, kind of kick it to. And to be honest with you, she was the one that approached me. Like I was in the supermarket and she came at me. I was just coming back from like playing ball, so I was like all sweaty. I was just trying to get like a Gatorade or something. So anyway, we started talking, and then we started dating. Come to find out, Stephanie had money. Like
Big money.
It's weird because our town has literally one street and then becomes another town, and then that town is the town with money, where people were like with the nice houses, and mom and dad have like really good jobs. In this case, mom was a lawyer, dad was a doctor, or vice versa, one of the two. I can't remember now. I'm older, but they both have money, right? And also, as a 14-year-old, girl and the that went a lot to the hood, she was into drugs, but I didn't know that, right? Like nothing heavy. It was mostly like weed or whatever, but she was into drugs or whatever. And we see each other, and one day I go to see her to her house, and she's not there, but mom is there. And she opens the door, and she's not wearing much. She's covered, but there's not a lot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
And she's like, I was like, I could come back. It's like, no, she should be here soon. Come on in. And she just had like a baby, like a 3-year-old or something like that. So there were like toys in like the living room or whatever. And I'm just sitting there, and she comes by, she bends down to pick one of the things, and she's like, because she saw me looking, like she did it on purpose, right? She did it on purpose, but like she saw me looking, and she was like, "You like what you see?" And as you know, when we're that age, 14, 15, you get hard by just someone smiling at you.
Yeah, instant.
So,
water.
Yeah, I was ready. I was like, even if I would have said like, "No, I'm good," like she could see that I was. Yeah, man. She took me to her room, and she had to tell me to slow down a few times because I'm young. I'm just trying to get it in. And man, that was one of my. It wasn't. I didn't lose my virginity with her. I had sex in DR, but she's literally like the second person that I ever had sex with, and it's a grown woman. Right. So what I will tell you with that is I actually got lucky. I mean, people might call it even like rape, because she was like in her 40s. I'm fucking 15, 16. But you know how we are as boys, like, hey, I take it. I don't care, right? But what it did do is also like show me a lot of things, that because I was with a woman already. So she will be like, no, do this, and no, do that, or do it like this. And it wouldn't be in a way of like, you're not doing it right. It was like literally she was teaching me.
Yeah, she coached you up. Yeah,
absolutely. To be intimate in a room. Like when you deepen, when you go back and look at it again, I had a teacher, a sex teacher. Like she will be like, do this. And it got to a point, bro, that I will be going there, like supposedly to see Stephanie, and I didn't really care for her because, of course, she's another kid like me, right? Like I'm just trying to get to mom. And then the mistake happened when she tried to buy me you remember those jackets, the Averex jacket, the puff.
Oh yeah. You was rich. If you had an Averex jacket, you looking like Wu-Tang and them boys out there.
There you go, right? So one day we go to Macy's as like a family. I just happened to be, because I was there for dinner, so they took me, and they're buying all kinds of shit. I ain't got that money, And she told me like look at the jacket, and she was like, "You like it?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I can't afford that." So I just put it back, left. We get to the house. She has like because they got money, so it's not simply just buying it. It had to be in like the nice cover up, so you couldn't even see it was the jacket. It looked like one of those covers for your suit, like you're traveling with.
Yeah, you hang it up in the hanger. Yeah.
But it was like a nice one. It wasn't even like a paper one or like something that you throw. It was like something you could keep on it. And she was like, "This is for you." And I opened that motherfucker up, and it was that jacket. And we're talking about, this is 1996. That motherfucker was $500.
Oh yeah, back then, yeah. Averex,
yeah,
level in New York, man. But you would have probably look. You would have got anything you wanted if you wanted something for that jacket. Like everybody wanted that jacket in New York. And
I took it to the crib, and my mom. She's one thing I was telling my mother. She's very straightforward, and she literally looked at me. First, she thought I stole it, so she was like, "What?" Let me bring it. I was like, "No. I bought it, And she even gave me the receipt just simply because she was like, if you don't like it, you could turn it in and get the money. I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
What?
Yeah, man. So I showed my mom the receipt and shit. And this is exactly what my mom said in Spanish, though. She was like, are you fucking her?
Oh, wow. Mom already knew. She knew it was going on.
In her mind, like, why is it a grown woman giving a kid a gift like that? Like I said, $500 back in 1996. Of course, I'm studying myself. No, I'm just dating her her daughter or whatever. Story short, I had to turn that shit back into her because my mom didn't even want me to go get the money. She was like, no, you will take it back to that lady. And I don't want you to go see her and her daughter ever again.
Listen, man. Listen, I know you said we kind of the same, but look here, man. In my house, if that would have happened, Mom would have been like, hey, go cash that out. Half of it coming to me. And then she would have whooped my ass and told me to never go back to that lady house again. And her daughter can't come back to the crib. But if we would have cashed out, that Jack, we cashing out, goddamn.
So here's the thing. I think the main reason she didn't do that is because my mom, even to this day, she's a citizen. She became a citizen in the United States when I was 17. So she's been a citizen now for 26 years. My mom has this fear that she will get deported tomorrow. Yeah. So she doesn't do nothing. I mean, nobody is like an angel, right? But anything that has to do with the law, Ursula Colon, she ain't playing with that shit. So, like, in her eyes, she was like, nope, you're giving that money back because if this lady comes back later and it's, asking for the money and say you stole it, like, that's where her mind went. You know what I mean?
Yeah, protective mode. Mom's going to protective mode. She's thinking about everything possibly worst case scenario. That's what she's supposed to do, man. So,
bro, we even
like she made the right choice. So
yeah, we even used to have one of those cable boxes that were like you could get all the channels that it was like hooked up. And like my, her husband brought that up and she threw that shit in the trash because she was she was like, I'm not having nothing illegal in my house. My mom, I didn't do drugs, not because I was like, me, myself being good. My mom used to be like, put fear in my eyes about like, to the point where she will pay extra money for her insurance so I could get tested twice a year.
Jesus, she was on it, man. You know what? I've never smoked weed before. I've never done anything, man.
I've never done it either.
Cigarette, never smoked weed, like never.
Yeah, like, and she used to do the test that she paid for was the one that they do with your hair, because the one with the hair
lasts long.
Yeah, it could be up to 6 months that it will tell you if you have. Yeah, my mom was not playing, bro. Like she was simply. You're here to have a better life, not to fuck around. So
no, man, that's what your mom's there for, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's unfortunately move on to some a lot of folks know about USS Cole, man. So you get to the Navy, you go to your first ship, USS Cole. But before we get into the tragic part of what happened to you on that ship, let's talk about some of the positives, man. Some of those port visits, man. Walk us through, you checking onto the ship and going on your first deployment, man.
Man, I checked in. I actually checked in a little bit early. My sponsor, she wanted me to. They were about to go to COM2X, right? Which we all, for those that don't know, that's the last main exercise before you go into a deployment. And so she was like, hey, I want you to come a little bit early so you could go with us on the way and experience that. So then the deployment is not the first time that you see on the way, that you see drills, that you see other things, which I was grateful for. First of all, like back in those days, when she was a second class, even a second class was like God. They telling you to do something, you do it, right? And second of all, like she was very squared away, which I didn't find out, of course, until I was on board, but she had her mind set on like, this is what is going to be good for you. So I reported early. They thought I was a female, so they had a female rack for me instead of a male rack. So I learned really quickly that ITs, we sleep in radio if needed, because I slept the first night in radio.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't have a mail rack for me, and everybody was gone for the day. You know, it was only like duty section or whatever. Anyway, we go on the way, and right away I see radio as a family. Like everybody was like so close together. You know, as we were talking about earlier, like, you know, we had our own clique in the mess deck that was like radio. You know, we would just go, and then like whenever, if you were not on watch and you were trying to go to eat, we all would go at the same time. We all kind of sit in the same table. And, you know, everybody was like really hungry because we had a very young crew. And our first port for that exercise was Miami. So the very first port I ever, like the Navy took me to, was Miami. And we had a blast. I mean, even for being, you know, a little seaman or, you know, not making nothing at that time, we still find a way to have a good time. And again, luck with the ladies, you know, that you know, I remember Miami. I didn't do nothing crazy. I didn't have a lot of stories, but even like, I remember we were walking around and like these girls were just like, hey, you can sit with us. And they were buying us drink and we were eating and all this sort of stuff. So it was a good time. We come back, we all go into, you know, our palm leaves or whatever, and then we go on deployment. It was August 2nd of 2000. And we go, and the longest we stay out to sea was the transit from Norfolk, Virginia to my very first port overseas, which was Barcelona. So that was the longest we were out, which was about 2.5 weeks. And from there, we had the schedule of, we will pull in on a Monday, and the ship will pull out again on Friday, and then pull back again on a Monday, which sounds amazing, right? But for someone that was an E1, I was damn broke, bro. Like
broke.
Yeah, because like, and then like, went to Barcelona, was our first port. I had a blast. You know, beautiful women all over the place, amazing food. I could speak Spanish, so like everybody was like, I would be like my group. I was the guy that like,
perfect Liberty buddy. That's what I said, bro. Perfect.
Even like the other girls, you know, if they liked you and you were my group, I'll be the one translating. Enough for you to get your, you know, your thing going, right? Like, hey, he likes you, you like him. You know, she said yes, he said let's go. Like, enough to do that, and then you two will do the signs or whatever you got to do. But I would do enough to make
it. Yo, you know? Whatever. Yeah.
So we had a blast, and then like the CO, which is something that we have lost, just simply because now I feel like everybody gets fired for any little thing that we didn't do back then. Like the CO, like we went from having Liberty expire, I think it was like a 1 for E5 and junior. Like the next port, it went up to like 2 o'clock or like 3 o'clock. So like every port, because we didn't get in trouble, we kept getting like more and more time away, to the point that when we got to Malta, we were literally like, me as a E1, E2, my Liberty expired at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's dope, man. That's that pre 9/11 deployment stuff, right?
Facts.
So,
Facts.
Yeah. I just missed that because I was in boot camp during 9/11, so I didn't get to experience the pre 9/11 Navy. But that's exactly how the old heads used to talk to us about.
Yeah, it was so there was a couple of things. One, we were not at war, so there was not 9/11. The cold haven't happened yet, so we were at peace. So like that, there's a lot of more leniency there. And then two, like I said, I'm just being honest. Like the trust level for sailors, when we first came in, and even after 9/11, we treated sailors more with like, you are a grown adult, right? Like, prove me that you, like, SEALs will go with like, this is gonna be the Liberty policy, and then you gotta prove me that you cannot have that. Like, instead of like nowadays, my last deployment, we go with the caution first. Like we're going to make it very strict, and then we're going to keep it that way, or maybe we'll be a little lenient. Back then, it was like, I'm gonna let you be out there and show me that you could do this. If not, we'll make it more strict. But like now, we start being strict. I think that's part of the difference.
It's a culture, definitely a culture change. But yeah,
for sure. What I will say though, as much as we had a great time going to these ports, those 2.5 days from that Friday when we left the port to Monday morning when we pull into the next, we were drilling. Like we were doing drills. Sometimes we will have GQ like 3 times in one day. Right?
Damn.
Yeah. So, and I say that now because that plays a huge part into then what happens when we get hit, right? Because although we were independent steaming and we had a great time going to all these ports, the understanding was that if ever something happened, we have to be prepared.
That's the sell-off. If we're gonna party, we're gonna work hard too. You feel me?
Yeah. And the thing too is, and again, it's not necessarily a knock, and it's not even about a generation, or I'm not trying to knock people. It's just how life has changed. Is that back then, man, when we did training, like it was okay to break stuff to then try to fix it. Like the faults, I can only speak as an IT. Like literally, my IT1 would unplug stuff. My IT1 would literally pull a car out. You know, like you could. So it wasn't like it is training now where there's like simulate that card is out, or simulate that this is unplugged or turn off or whatever.
You talking about the Coke machine? You talking about the Coke machine drill? Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
IT1 was literally in the middle of like we were independent steaming, so we were not like in a battle group, but in the middle of like the day, he will literally go by our Coke machine, just unplug stuff, or go in the Coke machine and like match things that are not supposed to be matched, and then combat will call, be like, "Hey, the circuit is down," you know.
Hey, yo, my man say Navy Red ain't working, man. What's going on? IT1 like, yeah, go fix it. Whoa, that's crazy. Crazy work.
And then like, of course, well later as the days will go on, you kind of catch wind, and you will be like, whatever he will be walking on radio, there will be someone following his ass because you will be like, you're about to do something, right? So, but we learned though. We learned because there was a constant level of like, let's train, let's have fun with it, right? Like he was really big on like one thing that I try to keep from him. IT1 Blood, so that was his name in my LPO. He actually retired as a lieutenant commander.
Damn. Okay.
I
gotta find him. Yeah.
It was that what he would do is, for example, he will be like, you know, this thing I will have a question, and he'll be like that. Oh, that's an ACP 131. But what I would like about it was not just simply go look at the pub. He will say, go look at the pub, come back, and let's talk about it because I want to know how you're reading it and how you're interpreting the pub. Because a lot of things we say is in black and white, but even in black and white, you might be interpreting one way compared to me in another, right? Especially some of our instructions that are very vague and very like, you know, what is it really trying to say kind of thing. So I used to love that about him because one, I felt like he knew every pub there was. Like I will have a question and he'll be like NTP3.
Bro,
like
old school LPOs, bro, they was Jesus, bro. Like these sailors these days would never understand how LPOs walked around like they was already senior chiefs, bro. Like I remember on my carrier, I had like 4 or 5 first classes. These motherfuckers was gangsters, dog. When I tell you they ran that shop, bro, you couldn't touch them, bro. I never saw the chief, bro. The Chiefs were in their office, they had their khakis on and shit, and you didn't talk to them motherfuckers. Like,
no.
Man, they were gods.
My chief will come there. If it wasn't for quarters, if she came down there, he will be like, what you want?
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Yeah. He straight up will be like, go to the bridge and get OED qual or something. But like, you got to go.
Yeah. And our warrant officers, man, we had 2 super OGs. Like, they were super duper OGs, man. Man, you probably know some of these guys. We the same kind of age. Warrant Officer Revels. I think that was how you say his name. Revels. And then damn, what was the OG? His name was Brown. He used to drive a fucking Chameleon CLK. Like that's everybody knew him because when you saw him drive into his parking spot in the officer parking, and he got out, he had a gold tooth. Like, oh my god, he was a super gangster. Like, oh, super gangster, man. Those dudes, man, they was just like they was gods, man. Those were some good days, man. But yeah, I'm sorry, man. Go ahead.
So yeah, so like that brings us to I remember we had an oil leak right after we did the transit on the Suez Canal, and we were doing GQs before that, and we were really messing up as far as like setting up zebra throughout the ship. Like we're talking about 10, 11, 12 minutes, which is unsat for a destroyer. But then we had the oil leak, and because we dropped below a certain level, we had to pull into a port to refuel. So as an IT setting up, the VTCs and all this other stuff in the wardroom, I got to be there when they were talking about, and they selected Yemen. That was the call from Fifth Fleet. And I remember they were talking about the security of it, and I'm just gonna be real with you. Like there was nothing about Yemen at that time that they were concerned more than any other country in the Middle East, right? So the security was a little bit heightened compared to like, let's say Barcelona, Spain, but not to that extent of like we're gonna go to FPCOM Delta kind of thing. It was not like that. So then here comes we pulling into Aden, Yemen, and the first thing that I noticed, or that we all noticed, because as a young sailor in a DDG, you part of everything: on rep, line handlers, ranking, you name it. ITSR Ponciano was in it. So we're doing line handling because we're coming to Aden, and the port. The best way I could explain it is it's like a U, right, and then like the refueling station was in the middle, and then the U is facing the city. So the ship was going like facing towards the city, and the CEO said, "No, I if something happens, ironically, I want to be able to head out." So they turned the ship, but as we're pulling in, we're noticing that there's like at least like 4 or 5 ships that are sunk in that marina, right? Yeah. They're all from Yemen, so it's not like other countries are there. But still, you feel like
that's weird.
Where the fuck are we coming into, right? So we pier side, which was like I said, it was only a small pier because it was a refueling pier. When we start refueling, I head down to radio when they secured on rep. I'm there with ITSN Guana and Simon Werberly, who was the deck seaman who wanted to be in IT. So we started training him. And the XO comes on with the 1MC and says, "Hey, we're refueling way faster than expected. So we're gonna set early chow because we're gonna set C and anchor detail a lot earlier than we thought." So they call early chow. We all 3 of us head up to the chow line, and then the 2 of them are like, "Hey man, we got the next. We're about to go and do C and anchor. You want to get ahead of the line?" And I was like, "Man, they ain't gonna believe that IT's got shit to do." So I just stay in the back. Mm-hmm. Mind you, though, again about the women, I was gonna be talking to a girl in the back, so that's why I also wanted to stay in the back. It's a common theme, bro. It's a common theme.
Super common theme. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So if anybody that's been in a DDG, think about Repair 5, which is in the middle of the ship. I was standing right there, and then I heard the loudest noise I ever heard in my life, as well as my feet came off the ground, and I moved back. I hit myself with the bulkhead, and then I hit the girl that I was talking to. And right away, like your thoughts, the first thought is like, "Hey, it must have been the refueling station that blew up." But then I was like, I'm standing on the starboard side, and this is where we're refueling. So that was it. I would have been dead. So then, because I was standing like right here with the door, I had to move a little bit to my left so I could see the P-way. And I'm not trying to make light of it because a lot of people passed away. You could see the smoke and the fire, kind of like what you see in the movies that's coming towards you. And of course, I panicked, right? Like I just started heading back aft to try to get outside from the skin of the ship to be in the flight deck. Well, this XO is coming from the top and coming from the back on the aft part of the ship, and he's like, "We've been hit. Go to your GQ stations." The 1MC did not work. That's one of the lessons learned, that we didn't have redundancy on the 1MC back then. So where we got hit, it completely took the 1MC out. So it was by word of mouth that people went to the GQ station. So my GQ station at that time was radio, because like a couple of weeks before, I remember telling my IT1, a couple of months before, I said, what do I need to do to get off the repair locker? I want to be in radio for GQ. And he was like, get qual. And that I did. I was, even though I was a seaman, I was all the way up to CWO. Like I wasn't CWO qual, but I was working on my CWO. So for GQ, they put me in radio. So I go down to radio. My chief is there, and there's just two, an IT1 and an IT2. And she said, look, I have an Alpha and a Bravo. There's no power, so we don't have any comms. She's like, go back to your old repair locker. So I head forward to repair 2. And I can't remember if it was a chief or an officer, but someone was wearing khakis when a khaki bell was like, hey, we're not doing anything on repair 2. All damage control is being done in repair 3 back aft. So I head back that way. On my way back, if you've been in a DDG, when you're coming out of the galley or the mess deck, and then you put the stuff in the scullery, a lot of DDGs have a little space right before you hit the P-way. After you leave the scullery to there, and I saw a body there, and it just had a blanket cover. You could tell it was a dead body, but it just had a blanket. Yeah. I don't know. I got curious. I wanted to know who it was, and I lifted that, and it was Seaman Gunn, who was SM, which now is our quartermasters, QMs. And I lost it, bro. Like that's what really hit me, that the damage, or like the impact of the situation. Like what is it that's happening? People are dead. Like, and I just started crying. But I don't know, a minute later, a few seconds later, I lost track of time. Someone tapped me in my shoulders, and it was like, hey, he's dead. We need to save the ship, and we need to save ourselves. And that might sound cold, but it's what I needed to snap, right? So I got up, I stayed crying, and I went back to repair 3. And then from that point forward, man, I was just doing what I was told to do. I didn't do nothing heroic. I didn't save any life. I didn't even don any repair, even firefighting. Like I didn't do nothing heroic. I was just simply, hey, we need a bucket because we need, water is coming to this compartment, or we need you to move this pump 100 from this compartment to this other. We need you to bring this injured person from one side to the other. That's all I did. That's all.
Bro, you did your job. You was a seaman, bro. Like you probably did more than most other seamen would do in that situation, bro. So don't downplay it. Like you did your job, bro.
Because I appreciate that, but I don't want to make myself sound like I was like doing more than what I did. I did my job. I will say that, because I will say all that training made a lot of things just be muscle memory. And one simple example is I was told from going from repair 2 to go back to repair 3, I had to go the length of the ship. You know what I was doing? I was closing hatches as I was going through places subconsciously. Like it wasn't even like someone had to tell me, hey, you got to close the hatch behind you. I was closing the job, bro. It was all because of the training and muscle memory, which is very underrated. Like the more we train, the more your memory and your body just do things because that's what you've been doing for a long time. So, yes, I definitely did my job. I will say that. If I could do a small brag, it will be that I was trained well. And
so the thing with the GQs and stuff, man, I'll be the first to admit we get really complacent on the ship during GQ. Like people are half-assed, setting boundaries. People get the investigative call and they really don't know what the fuck they doing. The Decade team is full of people who just got the quarter sent to the chief board, whatnot, right? And I see that a lot, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not a DC guru, right? I never claimed to be. I was in radio, right? I got called and I went to radio. You feel me,
Radio,
right?
yeah,
So,
same.
and the DC men, bro, when I tell you, anytime I got training from a DC man, they were so passionate about their job, bro. Like, shout out to the DC men and the HTs and the engineers.
Yes.
Those guys would be every time I would see them, duty fire marshal, big shout out, duty fire marshal. They sweating their ass off. They training the crew every duty day, bro. So big shout out to our engineers, bro. So just wanted to
man. And I doubled down on that, man. I've been blessed, and like every time, especially when I went back to a destroyer later on in my career, like whenever they did DC University, DC 1, I was an IT 1 at the time, will bring me to the mess deck to talk to the crew and be like, I was in the cold. Like right. I'm telling you right now that your number one mission first, you are damage control for the ship. And then you do that. Like, and to the point that I took that to heart when I became later on the ESWAS coordinator. I like, if you didn't pass DC or you were not doing well,
automatic fail, bro.
What for, bro? Like what for? You can't defend the shit and take care of the shit.
You don't get to wear ESWAS pin if you can't pass DC, bro.
Yeah, so yeah, man. So and to about the cold, like after that happened, then it became, kind of like things like slow down, right? Like it was like a hectic 2.5 hours, but then things kind of slow down, and then when that happens, you start looking for people. Where's so and so? Where's Keith? Okay, I see him. He might be injured. Like for example, my LPO IT1 blood, so he had a broken jaw. So, but he was alive. So I was like, okay, he's injured, but he's alive. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details what I saw, but that's when I saw a lot of, bodies and things that of people that I care about. Because another thing too is when you go on deployment, especially when you go on a small ship, everybody. Like you might not be close to everybody, but you know everybody, right? So yeah, and then from there, man, it was just days of like eating whatever was left in the ship store because we didn't have any food, and we didn't trust the food from Yemen because they started sending us food, and we were like, nah, I got this shit back.
I don't want none of this shit.
Yeah, this shit I literally ate like a Snicker bar and some Gatorade for like 2 days.
Hey, let's be real. That's probably what you was gonna be eating anyway. But
yeah.
Let's be real. Like, we killing this geek dog. We gonna smash this geek dog.
Like, facts. Like, so it wasn't a stretch. It wasn't a stretch to be eating that, right?
Right.
And then we finally got help from. First, it was the FAST team for the Marines who took over all the weapons, watches, and then we finally had the USS Donald Cook, BDG 75, and the USS Camden, who was a supply ship. And then they brought food. And then what they will do is they will bring, let's say you're an IT2 on the Cook, you will come and help out. And then I will go back in the ship and like, they will put me in a rack, or even like, it even got to some point that they were like, you could call it hot racking. Like I will take your rack, like, they will give me sheets and stuff to clean up. But like I will sleep in your rack because we were not able to sleep. We were sleeping in the skin of the ship. We were not sleeping in the berthings because one, either there were flooding already or there were no power, like all these different things. Man, I didn't get to call my mother until like 3-4 days later, which by the way, anybody that's listening to this, keep your page 2 updated, damn it. Because my mom did not get a phone call to let her know that I was, at the very least, that I was alive because I didn't update my page 2. Right. So I got to talk to her like 3 days later. And funny enough, I sent her a picture when I was in Malta of the ship, and you could see the Hulk, and you could see the name and the number. So when CNN was passing that this American ship got bombed, it was almost literally the same picture I sent her. So she knew it was my ship, but she didn't know anything about me for like almost 96 hours. So
yeah, I know she was in shambles, bro.
Talking to my cousins and family that were around her, she didn't eat for that until she talked to me. Like my mom is a smoker, so she was smoking and drinking coffee for 96 hours, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I unfortunately one of my close friends, Seaman Guana, was one of those that passed away. So I was selected by like the rest of the division to escort him back to his family, and
Yeah.
I left the ship on my birthday, October 17th, so 5 days later after the bombing, and I landed in Germany because crazy enough, we had an emergency landing. One of the engines blew up where we were bringing the bodies and the 17 people they went to escort them. And then I landed in Dover, and then there we had this general who told us like, "Hey, this is not your job. Like, you guys are not trained to escort bodies, so we're gonna send you to where you need to go so you can be with your family, and then we're gonna have people that are trained to bring these bodies back to their families." So from Dover, I flew to Norfolk, and I was the first one to landed because we took like these jets, like I guess Admiral jets, like private jet, G5s kind of jets. So I was the first one to land it. Like my jet was the first one, and I was the first one that came off, and there was family and people waiting, and I didn't have anybody waiting for me because my mom was back in Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And I remember the chaplain, he came up to me and he was like, "Where's your family?" And I was like, "They're not here." And he's like, "Well, your Navy family is here." And he gave me a big hug. And then that transitioned to why I think it was one of the most important things about the Cole and about my life was the Navy mandated us to go to Portsmouth that same night. I'm talking about like 2100. And then there was a team of nurses, psychiatrists, and we went through all these questions and all these things. And that's when they, started keeping track of like how we were going to be progressing mentally. I was told to go on convalescent leave, so I went on leave. The Navy gave me 14 days. I added another like 7 more to stay in DR, and I stayed with my mom. But then when I returned, the ship finally came back because the rest of the crew was there until November. That's when the Blue Marlin picked up the ship and took it back. And then from that point, the Navy made it mandatory that we took kind of like an exam or a test just to see, it will tell you like how you feeling from a scale of 1 to 10 and all sorts of different things. And then finally, we went to Pascagoula. The ship was in Pascagoula, and I was there. And then we finally had to like start moving on board, and that's when I started having nightmares and flashbacks. And then, of course, so when I did the survey again, because we had to do it quarterly, it was really high, and that's when I went limb due, and I had to go see a psychiatrist about PTSD.
Yeah. So, let's talk about a little bit more. I want to make sure we get the audience to get a real feel for the process. And back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, how far the mental health assistance that the Navy has provided, not only you, but several other people who have been through PTSD, traumatic experiences. From your point of view, can you talk about from the very beginning of the aftermath of the Cole up until now, what you've seen as far as Navy medicine in dealing with the mental health issues that some sailors are dealing with?
So I will say this, because there was no 9/11 before that, before the Cole, right? Like,
right.
We had intense like care, right? Like it was to the point where even us, we were given like a brand new barracks in Norfolk, right? Like they only put Cole sailors in this brand new barracks in Norfolk, which is the barracks. If everybody been in the base, it's right across from the galley. Is that it's not as new anymore, but it was brand new back then.
No, it is not. No, everybody knows it.
Yeah. So, but my point is like, I don't think it was the norm back then. They just did it extra for us because nothing else was happening. Like we were not at war. It was just a Cole. So that happened. I won limb dude. They sent me to NICTAM's land. And one of the things that it says for my is that I could not be standing watch with a gun. And what is the first thing they do at NICTAM's? They say me ASF to be.
Oh my God. I'm gonna do a whole episode on ASF. I got so much to say about that. I used to actually be the ASF coordinator at one of my previous commands, but I definitely am gonna do an episode on ASF.
Yeah, so
with some MAs. But yeah, go ahead.
So just happened that the captain that I was seeing, like, you know, a couple of weeks into me being ASF, is coming through the gate. And he's like,
what are you doing here?
IT3, what are you doing in the gate? And I was like, I was told to be in the gate, sir. You know? And,
that's awful.
Yeah. And he pulls to the side and starts making phone call. And within like 45 minutes, here comes my chief acting like he didn't know
what's going on and shit.
Yeah. And I put me on the watch floor. So what I will say, the first command, NICTAM's land, although I went limb dude over there, they were not very receptive of like all the appointments that I had to do and all the conditions that I had to have, because another condition was, yes, I could be in the watch floor, but I didn't, you know, my psychiatrist did not want me to be on night watch, right? To have that schedule be thrown off, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that they didn't care either. Like I was on nights, and I remember one time I had an appointment like at 9, and we got off a watch. I want to say like 7 or something like that. It was like a long wait that I had to, and I drove to Portsmouth, and I was like half asleep, man. Like I drove half asleep, and then the psychiatrist was late. Like he had the appointment prior took longer. So I didn't get seen until like 10. So by the time I got in there, I was hot, bro. Like, and they always ask you when you go through those appointments, like, are you thinking about, you know, suicide? You know, and,
absolutely.
You know,
right now, yes.
So I didn't say, I said something worse. I literally said this. I said, Doc, I will never kill myself, but right now I will kill you. So he calls security on me, bro.
No.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Oh,
I was hot, bro. Like, and then I explained to him, I was like, I've been on watch, and then you're late. Like, I've been up for almost 24 hours now. Like,
yeah,
how is this supposed to help me? So anyway, so like that made some changes. So I say this not to shit on NICTAM's. It just the culture was like, you know, what do you mean? Like, you got to be going to the doctor and you cannot stand this watch or that. What makes you so special? Because physically, I was completely fine, right? So like, you know, like there's no, you know, nothing physically. So like, what can you stand watch? What is this mental bullshit you're talking about, right? But as I went to different commands, people were more lenient into like understand that like I had to do that part. I also will say I did my part. And this is what I mean. And I'm not telling anybody that they have to follow this example. That was just me because of my own pride. If I knew I had an appointment, right? One, I will always try to make the appointment in the morning so I could come back to work. Or if I made it in the afternoon, it will be like, which is crazy. Again, I'm not telling you anybody to do this. This was just me. I will make it like a 1500 so I don't sound like I'm trying to skate work or whatever, right? So that was one thing. Two, if you were my chief and you needed something by Friday, and I know I have maybe 2 appointments that week, I will give you that shit by Tuesday or Wednesday, right? Because then that's just the mentality that it was, and it's still to some people to this day. That way, when I'm asking for time off, even though I'm simply just going to medical, you not looking at me like, well, you got shit that you owe me. So that, like, I will put that stuff on myself. I'm not saying that that's the right way. That was just how I did it. And as time went on, I was able to do that because I was very open with my chain of commands, right? Whether it was when I was a second class, a first class, you know, and then even as a chief, right? I will be like, hey, I gotta go to these appointments. And I always said this, and it was because a therapist told me this. And I would tell my chain of command, I'll be like, if you want me to be at my best, I need to go to these appointments.
Oh yeah. I bet you that hit the spot. I'm pretty sure that hit the spot when you said that to him. I would hope so.
I hope, and that's what I tell my sailors to this day. Like when they, I have a sailor, that had to go to, like, not the mental, but it was other things that she had to go to a lot of appointments. And there was one day that she was like, I'm getting frustrated because I gotta keep sending notifications that I'm going to go to this appointment, that appointment. And I looked at her and stood in the eye and I said, I want you at your best. So if that means you got to go to 5 appointments a week, then we're going to do that. I got your back. We got you. Right. Because one day you're going to have to take care of me. Like, you're going to have my back because I might have to be going for whatever reason. So yeah, I can honestly tell you, I was very lucky. Even at the beginning when mental health was not a big thing. Like, I had people that just simply they might not understood about mental health, but they care about me as an individual. So they allow me to, get the help that I needed. I will say though, I don't want to make it sound like it was roses. I also did my part. Like I want to throw that in there, right? Like because I still deal with PTSD to this day, and I have other issues that I have because of divorce and all these different things. I've been seeing counseling for all kinds of shit, right?
Right.
You also have a responsibility as well, right? Like your mental health might not allow you to be at your very best, but it doesn't completely hamper you from doing maintenance, from right. Getting
doing your job,
from doing your job, man. Like, and to be honest with you, and I'm gonna keep it a buck on you. Me being successful in the Navy was a driving force for me to continue to, like, seek counseling. So my point will be, like, I want to get that EP because it's going to make me feel better. I'm going to work hard and get these quals because I want to feel better. I feel like sometimes we use our mental issues and the things that we have going on to excuse the fact that we're dinking in a PQS.
I mean, I've seen that so many times. I don't want to come on here and sound unempathetic, right? Because I'm glad you, as somebody who's going through what you've gone through, said that out loud. Because as a leader, when you see sailors say, I have mental health issues, it's so hard to be like, I'm going to do everything in my power, be as genuinely, empathetic as possible, and then try to hold them accountable for not doing their job. You know what I'm saying? Because if that person comes in late a couple of times, if that person is dink on PQS, what do? Do you counsel them and hold them accountable? And then when it comes to the accountability part, they throw in your face like, hey, I've been going to medical for issues I can't tell you because of HIPAA and my PTSD. And then you're handcuffed, right? At least I'm just talking for myself, because
you spot on.
You're totally handcuffed because you don't want to be that leader. You don't want to be that leader who doesn't care about mental health. But at the same time, you got a department to run. So you're kind of in this weird space of holding people accountable and making sure you're not showing people specific, favoritism type stuff. But you still want their mental health to be A1. So that's a really tough spot to be in.
It is tough. So I've seen so many things. I've been in so many duty stations, and I've had the privilege of leading a lot of people, right? And I have heard a lot of things, and like, I have sailors that have come up to me and well, I'm going through this, so, like, I can't stand watch, for example, especially if it's a night watch, right? And I'm like, look, I don't need to get in your business, but, like, when you're telling me that you cannot do X, like, it has to be in writing. Like, somewhere, a medical person has to tell me. I can't. They don't have to go into detail as to why you can stand the watch, but they got to tell me he or she cannot stand the watch. And I usually say this, and I'm lucky because it happened to me. I could say, because I know that's what happened to me. Like, it was in writing. It didn't say because he was in the cold and he saw 17 people get killed and 39 got injured. I didn't go into any of those details. I just simply said, but as a third-class cannot stand night watches because it's detrimental to this, right? So,
sure.
my point into the conversation that you're having is, I understand HIPAA. I understand that we want to, for every sailor to go seek help. And I said, but don't use it as a hindrance to not get nothing done. Like, you might not be able to do X, but doesn't mean that you cannot do all the other stuff, especially us on the IT side. We got so much shit going on that you cannot tell me that now you cannot do all these other jobs that we have to
I
do.
can't do backups because I can't do the night. Yeah. What do you mean you couldn't do your weekly backup on that server? What? Like, come on.
So then we all have a job, and I'm not telling you, right, like the what you have going on is not important. And we're talking mental health, but it could be simply going through a divorce or financial issues, or all that stuff. We all got, I like to call it shit and demons. We all got shit going on, and we got demons. All of us do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, those same leaders who are hesitant to allow people to get their shit together, those are the people with the biggest demons and shit going on in their background, So
But we also have to look at it, because a lot of us get very selfish, and I've been guilty of that. So I'm not.
Yeah, you human, bro. It happens.
Yeah. Not throwing stones. But we have to understand that maintenance is still going to be there. So if I'm getting away with shit because I'm using my mental health, or I feel like Chief should like give me more time off because I got shit going on, that means you're going to do it, bro. That means you're going to do the maintenance that you were supposed to do plus mine, right?
Man, that's one thing sailors would do a lot of shit that they're not supposed to do. But one thing I've learned is sailors hate doing maintenance, and they hate doing maintenance that they weren't supposed to do. That's one thing that a sailor will fucking chew your ass about if you're a leader. They don't give a shit when it comes to, that's not my damn check. I'm not called to do that check. Tell that motherfucker over there to do that tag out. That's not my mate. Like,
so it's either that or you're gonna be sending extra watches because now I cannot send. My point is to this: go get the help. Go and talk about what you're capable of not doing and doing. But if you can do 3 things, please do those 3 things, because that's 3 things that now I don't have to spread it to other people that already have 15 things going on, right? And then, because then, like, again, like I said, like if I'm out of commission, I can't stand watch. Now I'm giving you more watches, so now you're gonna go through shit because now you got more shit going on in your plate. You're being held accountable for more stuff. So as much as I'm very big on like go get help or whatever, part of getting help is also having a purpose. And again, I said it early on when we came home, is that nobody joins the military to just be mediocre. We all join to try to be the very best. So
right.
As you are working through your mental health, continue to have those goals. Continue to do everything you can in your power. Maybe now, because you got all these things going on in life, that PQS that you wanted to knock it out and do it in 3 months, now it's going to take you 4 or 5. Cool, bet. It's okay. But continue to strive. Don't become a person that just simply is like, I'm going to let this hinder me in so many ways that it's going to, because then what's going to happen is, because it is the reality, Keith is doing all the duties and responsibility that I was supposed to be doing. Yes, because I'm taking care of my mental health. Right. But how am I going to write myself an EP when I don't have any collaterals because I gave them all away because of my mental health? How am I going to be how am I going to be up for Sailor of the Year when I'm not doing any college? I don't have any collaterals. I'm not leading anybody because I'm just simply taking care. If that's what you got to do to take care of yourself, fine. But understand that there's people that are killing it,
right,
for one reason or another, and it got nothing to do with your mental health. It just simply is when we put that sheet about Sailor of the Year, you are clicking every box there, and I'm not. Ain't got nothing to do. It doesn't say anything about my PTSD. Ain't got nothing to do with that. It's just simply performance. And yes, I cannot help that because of my PTSD, my performance is going down. I cannot help that. It is what it is. but we also have to understand that like that comes with that territory. So I implore anybody that's listening, please take care of yourself, but then understand that it's a job and a responsibility that you still have. Because if you don't do it, someone else will. And usually that person already has a shit ton of stuff to do themselves.
Hey, that's well said. Well said, Master Chief, man. I'm glad somebody who's been through the shit said that, right? Because, you know, folks who haven't been through it, you know, it's really easy for us to sit on our high horse and say, hey, ain't nothing wrong with you for real. You know, get shit. I still need you on the deck place to do your part, right? But I'm really happy you said that, man. That was well said. But
Thank you.
You are, even though you're a Master Chief, I know you got to go to work, right? I'm in Japan, so it's 2100 where I'm at. But I know you got sailors waiting on you to sign some leave chits and do some Friday Liberty briefs and whatnot. So we gonna get you out of here with a segment I like to call Final Five, man. You ready for this?
Absolutely.
All right. These gonna be quick draws, right? You know,
Yep.
Nothing elongated, right? Just give me the short and sweet answer of what you got, right? So first off, what's the best advice that you've received since you've been in the military?
Funny enough, I didn't get this advice until I was already a chief, but it's been stuck with me ever since, and it's take every opportunity. And what I mean by that, I'll make it very simple, is give you a small collateral. It's an important collateral, but it's a small one, which is the Navy Marine Corps relief, right? It's about 3 months out of it. You know, when you compare maybe to ACFL or CFL or Simeo, it's not in comparison when you kind of look at it. But if you do it really well, if you do it really good, when those big collaterals come up, I'm thinking about your name because you kill it. So what I mean it in the sense of like, take every opportunity. If they want to send you to a fiber optic school as an IT, we don't do a lot of fiber. Take it, because you don't know when you get out. Maybe that's what you're going to be doing when you get out. Like, so take every opportunity that is given to you and try to be the best at that, or simply at achieving as many things as you can, because you never know when you won't have that opportunity anymore.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. What's the worst advice you've received since you've been in the military?
So the worst advice I received was, and this is gonna maybe get upset some of my brothers and sisters, but you're a chief, you don't do X. You don't stand that watch, or you don't get that qualification because you achieve now. That's the worst advice I was given. Thankfully, I had other people that had told me for a very young stage that there's nothing more powerful than me looking at you in your eyes and saying, I'll downgrade you and say, hey, IT1, you need to get this qual because I have it too.
Very powerful. Especially, I like to do that with my degree. If I can do it, if I can get a degree, anybody can get one. You got no excuses, right? So,
Same, bro. Same.
I like that one. So we kind of touched on a few of these, man. But next one is, what's the best port visit you ever had? Best port visit.
I'm
so many. I know.
So
give me top three. Give me top three. Let's do that. Top three.
So that would be easy then. First one is Barcelona. It's the first one I went to. But then I've been to Barcelona like 9 more times after that. Some of it Navy, other been on my own. I love the city. It has it all, from food, from, it has mountains so you could hike to. As you can see, I'm wearing the Barcelona shirt for the football team because I love that team. So like it has it all. I love Barcelona. Second, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil.
Ooh, Rio. Yeah, I saw that you went back with your daughter, right? You took your daughter there.
Which was awesome because I went as a young single man, and then I went with my
parent.
It was 2 different trips. It was
We're not gonna get into that, but I'm on the same page with you.
You're with me. And then the third one, and it might like people will be like, what? Oslo in Norway. Yes, it's cold.
Yeah. I've been there. Been there.
Yes, it's cold and all that, but like between the how friendly people are, how everything is so clean, how easy it's to get around.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And although I got my lady, she doesn't get offended by me saying there's some beautiful women in Oslo. So yeah.
Well, I knew they had to be real bad because you started doing that scratch on your neck. You're like, man,
Hey, man,
you get that little part right here in the back of
it
your
was,
like,
Norway was beautiful, bro. I went there like 6 times, man. Yeah.
I feel you. All right. So what's your favorite command that you've been to? Favorite command?
Ooh. So I will say the Forrest Sherman, right? So the Forrest Sherman is what I picked up chief there. And it's the first time that I had like true the responsibility of like a full division. I will tell you this, I was not a good chief. And I say that because I was more focused on mission and on, if you look my division from the outside, spotless. Everybody was ESWAT's qualified, had all their quals or whatever. But if you dig deeper, I was riding the hell out of those sailors, right? Like I wasn't worried about too much about what they had going on personally. But I say it was the best because we were underway a lot. We still were a family, but then I learned so much from that experience. Like that made me a better leader because someone stopped me. Shout out to Corey Jones, my mentor, and say, "Hey, bro, you fucking up as a leader. Like you killing it. You killing it on paper." Because I was the number 2 EP on my very first eval as a chief. So I was killing it on paper, but my people were suffering from it. So I took a lot of lessons, and unfortunately, majority were what not to do from that point forward. But that was my favorite command because I learned so much from that.
Yeah, appreciate the vulnerability and honesty on that about that command and how you went about being a chief on that, learning about that. So last one, man. So let's say they make Master Chief CNOs all of a sudden. You're a CNO now. What's something that you think policy-wise that you would want to either implement or change for the Navy?
So I had this in my head for a minute now, and it's because I've been a CFL for 14, almost 15 out of my 25 years. So it's a 2-part. First, I would make BCA a medical thing, right? And what I mean by that is you go to medical, you get way in, you go do all that, and then they treat you. If you're not within the standards that the Navy might have, then they go into, what nutritions you might need, what blood work you might need, like things like that. I've been a CFL, bro. That's a week-long course. How can I tell you how to get better nutrition to lose weight when I don't know any of that stuff? Like I didn't go to school for that. I don't have the degrees and things like that. So I feel like BCA, I'm not saying that if you are not within the standards that it's going to be okay, but we know people that supposedly are too big as far as the BCA standard and can kill a PRT. So if medical tells you that you're still healthy and you could do everything, then why should that count as a failure? I'm not saying to make it any lenient. I'm just simply saying that it should be a medical readiness thing, not a PFA part, right? Okay. That will be the first. And then the second thing I would do is I will create kind of like maybe like 4 teams, 1 in each coast, 1 for Asia, and then also and another one for the Med and Fifth Fleet. And they will be called like your CFL teams. And they will come to a command, maybe 4 or 5 people, and there will be a week where they will just do the PRT. And because I do a couple of things. One, I don't work for you because I'm not from the command. So if you fail, you fail, right? 2, the same way I count push-ups is just the same way I'm counting in every command because and I know that depending on the CFL, I've been where I had a CFL that guy put the fist in my chest and I had to come down to his fist to count the push-ups.
Yeah.
And I've been another where I only did this.
Yeah.
And I got 80. And like
you doing a fast hump on the ground.
You know what I mean? Like So that's one of the reasons why like our CFL, our PT scores don't count to things because that could be very subjective. It's all depend on your CFL. So and then we all been in command. I've been in CFL. I've been told by someone higher like, hey, can you redo so and so? Give him a bad day. because they got the NEC, or they were that number one EP and now they're going to have a failure, or you were that senior chief that's going for Master Chief, so it's going to hurt you. You know what I mean? So if you bring teams to do the PT and then they gone, they do it and then they out, then you don't have to worry about that. You give the paperwork to the command, bye, and that's that. That's a dream. But the BCA part, I really believe we could be doing a lot better if we make it a medical thing instead of being part of the PFA.
Yeah, that's a really good initiative there, man. Maybe get a white paper to the CNO for real. Maybe we can make something like that happen, man.
Hey, man, I'm on it.
Yeah. Hey, it's been real, man. I appreciate your time, man. This has been a great experience. Everything that you've been through, extraordinary, man. Just coming out of that situation on a coal and making it all the way to the highest enlisted rank, the 1% club. I mean, that's great, man. That's awesome. And hopefully some young sailor sees you and gets inspired by your story and your resilience. But most of all, go cop that book. Throw the book up for him one more time, man.
There you go.
Hey, go pick that up. Anchored in Resilience, man. Great read, man. So I appreciate your time, Master Chief, man. And hopefully we can chat again about the number 2 book that comes out after this one, the remix.
Well,
right.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the kind words for the book, and I'm telling you, I the best thing I could tell anybody that wants to read the book or just simply wants to learn more about me is there's nothing special about anything that I've done, right? That we all can do the same or even better. It's just a matter of realizing that potential that we have within us and to want to become better. If that means going to counseling, do that. If that means pushing yourself to things that you might not even thought that you would be capable. If that means getting a better circle of people around you, do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, the Navy is a wonderful thing. Take full advantage. Take every opportunity. And if that opportunity means that I'm going to get this to then separate or just simply, leave after 7 years because I had enough, thank you for your service. And, be the best person that you could be and just give everybody grace, man.
For sure, man. Wise words from the Master Chief, baby. Take heed, y'all. Hey, so that's it for the 1MC today. Again, Master Chief, I appreciate your time. And we out. See y'all next time. Thanks.